And just before I'd gone to university, I was finally medically controlled for maybe a year, year and a half. And then before I went to university, my PCP decided it was important that I wasn't on medicine when I went to university. And so over a period of 3 weeks, something we know not's the right thing to do, he took me off all my medications. So I arrived at university, and within a day I started having seizures. It was quite the introduction to my the new students I was meeting at the university. But after that, I managed to get pharmacologically controlled. And I find myself very lucky. I've been now pharmacologically controlled for 40 years. And, but I still remember to this day vividly seizures, the aura before a seizure, regaining consciousness, the confusion, the exhaustion. And there's still somewhere in the back of my head, there's always this little bit of a fear, but I just try to suppress it and keep moving forward with my daily life. So that's sort of the short story about my epilepsy. I now have a metal plate in my head, the bones knitted back onto it, and I'm lucky.
Well, it sounds like you're one of the people who really got great seizure control through medication. And you told us how you were 15 when your epilepsy started due to your traumatic brain injury, and that things were really hard for you in high school, and you said you barely got through high school. But I happen to know about you that you went on to receive a PhD and now have your own research lab at Tufts University Medical School. So you ended up really turning it around. You may have struggled for a while there, but you persevered, and you've become quite an academic leader, I know, in the Boston area and beyond. I met you at the medical school one day, Phil, and we were talking about epilepsy, and you mentioned to me that you weren't always that open about your diagnosis. Maybe you were actually not open at all to talking about it, but then about a decade ago, something changed for you. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I was in school, there was no hiding I had epilepsy, right? And so it was my daily life. And I know my parents went to school, the teachers talked to all the kids, and I don't know what was said. Everything was kept secret. It was really peculiar. I came to school and I didn't know what people knew, didn't know, and I just got on with life. Then I went through my PhD, and then in my first real job, one of the senior colleagues, I said to him, I have epilepsy. He said, "Oh, don't tell anyone." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "If you tell anyone, you will never get a job." And I thought this is a little ridiculous, but at that point, I just shut down completely. And then I went through decades, and I said absolutely nothing. And in fact, I didn't know anyone with epilepsy. I now realize there are a lot of us. I was really surprised, of course, how many there are. Now, when I became open about this was when I was at University of Pennsylvania about 12 years ago. One of my colleagues there, Professor Coulter, he's an expert in the study of epilepsy, and he's the president of the American Epilepsy Society now. And Doug and I, we taught the neuroscience class together, and we started doing collaborative research and on epilepsy. So I started to do some particular studies there. And I said to him one day, "Oh, Doug, I have epilepsy." And, just without, thinking about it, he said, "Oh, what type of epilepsy do you have? Wouldn't it be cool if we could find a cure for you?" And he was just so welcoming. And after that, I talked about my epilepsy, and we started actually looking in the literature about what happens in the brain after you have a traumatic brain injury. And actually in my department at the moment, we have work going on about head injuries, its effect in the brain, and how that can lead to seizures. So when talking with Doug, I was then at conventions, and I would talk to the local epilepsy community. We would discuss science, and then I was slowly telling people I had epilepsy. And it was extremely interesting, the reactions I got. There was the reactions of some people, it was like, "Oh, it's almost like, this is great. You're going to talk about your epilepsy with me. I want to learn more about you as a patient and a person. And then there were others, and I was talking to them about really opening up, and they said, well, be careful. And so there were these two camps of people, ones who said, be careful. Do you really want people to know about your medical background? And there are others who said, oh, you should totally open up. So what do I do? Well, I'm established in my career. I don't have any worries. And so I decided I'm just going to start telling my story. And so it was about a decade ago, I started telling the story and talking to his, I could be that bore in the grocery store who talks about his epilepsy. I talk to anyone. And it's really, I don't want to talk about it because I have a condition as such. I would more like to talk about it to say how I overcame problems, how I was able to push and do an extra thing to live my life. And so I have many stories. For example, if we go back to when I was in high school, there was the summer of my head injury when I was 15. So I used to love playing cricket. So the English equivalent of baseball. And I used to play the position of wicket keeper, which is the equivalent of the catcher. Well, I decided that was probably too dangerous to do. But I talked with my friends, and we found ways that I could play cricket where we put safety guardrails in place. So prior to the injury, I used to do whitewater kayaking. And I decided, nah, that's probably a little too dangerous. I can't put guardrails. But I had a crash helmet for kayaking. So what I did, I wore a crash helmet playing cricket. And this was a period when helmets were not in vogue in playing cricket. So I wore the helmet, and I talked to my friends. I said, well, when we play cricket, no fastballs. Let's just do the normal slow bowling. So simply not being a wicket keeper, wearing a helmet, and having slower balls, we were all able to play together and have cricket. And it was just like nothing had happened. And so this is a message because I can talk openly about my epilepsy, this is a message I really like to get out to people. And in Sail For Epilepsy, we've developed a challenge. We call it the One More Step Challenge. And it is there one more step you can take in your life to live life to a fuller extent? But you have to have the necessary safety guardrails in place. So don't be irresponsible in what you're doing. You need to talk to your family or your caregiver about what you're doing. And this has been really quite an empowering thing for me personally, but also in talking to other people and the inspiration they get to try and do something. Now, as you know, people with epilepsy have a spectrum of challenges. I'm at one end, I'm very lucky. I haven't had a seizure in over 40 years. And I know there's others who are, are not pharmacologically controlled, for example. But is there something that one can do? A little simple something, just to increase quality of life. And so that is the campaign that we're developing, or the challenge we're developing. And through our website, we have the One More Step Challenge, where we want people to come along and say, what do you want to do to try and live a fuller life? And I think it's quite interesting to me, and I sort of talk about this with other people, not even with epilepsy, is essentially it's something in life. What can you do that's a little more of a challenge just to live a fuller life? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm very open. Everyone who I work with know I have epilepsy. At work, they come and ask me about it. And it's quite enjoyable to be able to educate people about epilepsy. And you probably are not going to be surprised, Susan, but when I talk to people who either don't have epilepsy or don't care for people with epilepsy, I ask them, what would you do if you found someone having a seizure on the sidewalk? And the lack of knowledge is incredible. Mm-hmm. And so I have my little Sail For Epilepsy business cards, and on the back I have the steps, what you should do. And so I have no shame. I just keep handing these cards out, and the goal is let's let people know what to do.
Great.
Yeah, and Phil, I think it's, amazing that you've become such a strong advocate for the epilepsy community over, the years after, not being able to come out for a few years. And then even some of those minor tweaks and your activities that you're able to participate in, like the rafting and the cricket. I think that's amazing. So for folks just tuning in on Facebook, we're joined by Susan Linn from Epilepsy Foundation New England and Phil Haydon from Sail for Epilepsy. And Phil, I want to get into the sailing part of your mission here with Sail for Epilepsy. How did you first start getting interested in sailing as a child and growing up?
Well, I didn't actually get interested in sailing until 2007, believe it or not. And what it was is before my head injury, I was a competitive whitewater kayaker. And as I said earlier, after I started having seizures, I decided that I couldn't figure out a way that I could continue to do kayaking. And so, I was successful in my career. I had a family, and then in about 2007, I'm realizing my kids are leaving home. I need to now get back into some sporting activity and doing more. So kayaking was out, but I love the water. So I decided to learn to sail. So I took some sailing lessons, and I took the lessons with my son, which was a lot of fun. Then on my 50th birthday, I said to my family, "Oh, I'm going to go and rent a sailboat in the British Virgin. You may get a theme here. I'm up for the challenge. I'm going to rent a sailboat in the Virgin Islands. If you'd like to join me on my birthday, do so." And so then I moved to Boston, got a sailboat, and I got hooked. Absolutely hooked. And it's really an amazing experience being on a sailboat. First, when I step on a sailboat, I forget everything at work, because just 100% focus on yourself on the boat, how to navigate the boat, how to keep the boat safe, and how to keep yourself safe, and also anyone else on board. And so then since 2007, the amount of sailing I've done has increased, as well as the distances I sail, the type of sailing I do, and I really become really quite fanatical about it.
Great. Well, we're so happy that you're up for the challenge, and I really appreciate the One More Step campaign. I think it's really inspirational. Again, for those of you who just tuning in, I'm Susan Linn with Epilepsy Foundation New England, here with David Searles, our Director of Special Events, and Dr. Phil Haydon, who's one of our partnering friends and has created a program called Sail for Epilepsy. So Phil, tell us about what is Sail for Epilepsy.
Yeah, so I guess the umbrella of Sail for Epilepsy is that by sailing, I want to do four things. So first, navigate, to inspire people with epilepsy to do more. I want to be able to raise funds to help find a cure for epilepsy, and I want to educate people. So NICE is our tagline. And if you may see on my shirt, we have navigate, inspire, and cure. And then this is a brainwave and Sail for Epilepsy. And so through social media, the website, my goal is to be reaching out to people in the community. Through my sailing activities, they can learn what I've been able to do. I'm not trying to get them to do what I'm doing, but again, it's to try and inspire people to do more, as well as to educate people about epilepsy. Now, so that's sort of an umbrella thing, but our goal is actually to sail the oceans of the world. And as we go around the world, be able to do live feeds from the middle of the Pacific Ocean, for example. And by building a following, then as we're doing a live feed, actually people are able to see what's happening on the boat. And hopefully it'll be good times. And we'll be able to show the dolphins, talk about the challenges we're facing, and have lessons about navigation. I know in a feature event, Susan, one thing is, what's the North Star? Why is the North Star important? Things like that. So we're going to do this navigation, but up to the navigation on the oceans, we have events that are developing this year, and we want people to follow, and people reach out to me. I actually respond to messages. And if you have questions for me, write through Sail For Epilepsy website, and I will answer. I want to be here to help and inspire people.
Thanks, Phil. I just want to add to that, for those of you who are watching from home, thanks for joining us. And if you have a question, we are going to have a question and answer period at the end. So please feel free to add your questions into the comments, and we'll collect those and we'll give those to Phil at the end. David, I think you had the next question for Dr. Haydon.
Yeah. So Phil, you often sail alone. Are there any fear, reservations, or concerns about sailing solo with epilepsy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So this again is about guardrails. So I've done things like I've done a solo race from Newport, Rhode Island to Bermuda, which takes about 5 days. And so this is a serious challenge. You've got to keep people have asked me, where do you anchor at night? There's no anchoring. You keep sailing. You have the autopilot helping guide the boat. But one of the challenges here is sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation can, for some people, be a trigger for seizures. So before I started doing these types of events, I actually I trained for napping, believe it or not. So I take these things very seriously. I have a colleague who's a sleep scientist at Brigham and Women's. He's a consultant for NASA. He trains astronauts about sleeping. And I hooked up with him and I said, this is what I want to do. And so he developed a program with me that was actually developed many years ago by Claudio Stampi in the Boston area for sailors. And it's called polyphasic sleeping. The sleeping we do normally is just we sleep in one chunk, monophasic. But when you have to keep getting up, you take little naps. So what I did, I said, well, I'm not going to try this at first on a boat. I'm going to try it at home. So what I would do, I went through a few days where I would take some naps in the afternoon. And then at night, the longest I could sleep was 90 minutes. And I'd set an alarm, I'd wake up, I'd go back to sleep for an hour, I'd wake up. And what I did is over several days, I wanted to test whether I would be able to cope with this. And I found out I was. Now, an important part of this as well is if you're taking a nap at the weekend, you can actually call it training. Training to go offshore sailing. But in addition to the sleep deprivation and napping strategies, there's also being on a boat, you have to be very careful. So there's lots of safety issues I have when I go offshore. So for example, down the side of the boat, there are people who go, and I clip into them. I have a life vest on. If I were to fall overboard, it's got automatic satellite communications devices to give a message back to the Coast Guard. There's lots of layers of safety that one has to take into place. And this again comes back to the general concept. Try to do one more step, but put your safety guardrails in place.
Yeah, Phil, I think it's amazing what you're doing. Your concept of guardrails I really relate to because of the foundation. When we hold events for children, youth, and families, we also put guardrails in place. We encourage our kids to do things like rock climbing and swimming and boating, play all the sports, ride bicycles, but we make adaptations like helmets or life jackets, extra lifeguards, things like that, so that we really relate to what you're saying with guardrails and making adaptations for people to be able to participate safely.
Yeah, and it's very important to allow people to do, by putting those guardrails, people can do more with their lives. I have to say, as I've been developing the Sail For Epilepsy concept, I've gained incredible respect from my parents who are unfortunately no longer with us, so I can't actually thank them. I can't believe what they went through when I went for 12 months with no skull in the front of my head, because I wanted to get out and play cricket, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And my mother was my mom, she was a worrier at the best of times. And then I had the, piece of skull missing. But we'd have these conversations, and it's not until recently I realized they really talked in the background about allowing me to do things, but sort of politely ensuring that I was going to have some safety features. And I don't know how they developed that plan. It's certainly not something that was really consciously spoken about in the community at the time. But hats off to them. They did an amazing job in letting me move forward.
Yeah, it sounds like you really had supportive parents who did everything they could to give you access to all the things that you would have had if you hadn't had the traumatic brain injury and epilepsy.
Yeah.
So again, I'm Susan Linn here from Epilepsy Foundation New England with my colleague David Searles, and we're talking with Dr. Phil Haydon, who is with Sail For Epilepsy and is planning to sail around the world for epilepsy. So Phil, back to Sail For Epilepsy and sailing around the world. I think you're planning to dock at various ports around the world. What will you do with the people that, will you be engaging with people in those local ports? What will that look like? What are you anticipating?
Yeah, so some of the things we're expecting to do, for example, when we get into a particular country or port, we would do feeds like this, for example, around that country. But also within the port, we want to do a sort of import meet and greets, whereby, you know, we can advertise in advance and there will be a tracker. They can see the boat arriving. And then after I've had a sleep, we'll actually have an event in that port where people and their families can come and meet me, and we can talk about epilepsy. And again, you'll hear it time and time again. I'll promote the one more step challenge and safety guardrails. And I find it incredibly personally rewarding talking to people with epilepsy. And you know, some of the challenges people face are just incredible. And the spirit that people have, despite those challenges, I find incredible. And I remember one of your events in Newport last year, Susan, meeting a parent. And I forget the parent's name for the moment, but her daughter was at the sailing camp that you put on in Newport. And she said to me, her daughter came to her and asked if she could go in this sailing camp. And the mother was petrified, but eventually let the kid go into the camp. And because of the guardrails you put in place, it was safe. And at the end of the camp, the kid said to their mom, "You're the best mom ever."
Yeah, you can't, that's priceless. We have so many inspirational stories to tell, and I think, Phil, indeed, when you are traveling around and hearing people's stories, you're going to bring back a lot of inspirational stories for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, these types of events, I truly believe, make a difference in people's lives.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for this trip. It sounds amazing, and I know there's a lot of moving pieces and, you know, a lot of support network that you have around you and Sail For Epilepsy. And one of those is that UCB was just announced as one of your corporate partners. Can you speak to their involvement with Sail For Epilepsy?
Yeah, so UCB is now the corporate sponsor of the foundation, and they're an amazing company. You know, we often hear such negative press about pharma. What I love about UCB is, yes, they're developing drugs, they're selling drugs, and but they also are fully engaged in the patient population. And they really want to make help the patient population live a fuller life, help educate it, and their goals resonate entirely with our goals. So I remember when we first sat down to talk about the Sail For Epilepsy's goals, and it was in my office. We were sitting and chatting, and after about 30 minutes, we were all sitting there just looking at one another, saying, "I can't believe we are so aligned in what our objectives are." So it's really great to have them on board as a sponsor, and I look forward to working with them for years to come.
Yeah, Phil, I want to echo what you said about UCB being a company that we found to be a wonderful partner to Epilepsy Foundation New England, from sponsoring our activities and helping us have the funds we need to be successful, to really rolling up their sleeves and being with us at camp and at our walks and playing with our kids and being that extra set of hands that we need to be successful. So I'm so happy to hear about UCB's sponsorship of your work, and agree that it's a wonderful company to partner with.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and then again, just a reminder, if you have questions, we are going to be taking questions at the end. If you provide them in the comment section, that would be the way to get your questions answered by Phil or by us. But Phil, as you are sailing around the world for epilepsy, will there be a way for us to track your progress? How can we follow along?
Yeah, so even before the journey around the world goes on, you're going to be able to follow on social media, on the website. If you go to the website, sailforepilepsy.org, you should immediately be alerted to a newsletter, which goes out quarterly at the moment. And then our at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Sail for Epilepsy, follow us, and we'll be giving lots of feeds. Even today, we put up little posts. For example, I put up a post about sleep and the importance of sleep and how I overcome sleep issues. And we're now putting up things routinely about twice a week. I try and put inspirational stories. There's one coming up soon about cricket. There's one coming up on there soon about the person who inspired me to overcome, which is my grandma. Where she had some real physical challenges in her life, and she used the expression. She used to cut the little sentence. This is before the internet, of course. She cut little pieces of newspaper out with one-line inspirational sentences, and she'd stick them on the refrigerator. And there was one that she always said, "I can and I will." And she used this and this is, as we grew up, it was always, "I can and I will." And I realize I'm getting a little off topic, but I'll come back on topic in a moment. But when I sailed to Bermuda, in the cockpit of the boat, I got a Sharpie, and I wrote, "I can and I will," and then put her name. And about 4 days into the trip, I had some breakage on the boat. I had some personal challenges. And I remember seeing, "I can and I will." And it just helped me, just get over the hump and go on and finish the race. So in the voyage as well, on the home page and also through social media, we'll have a map, and the map will have trackers on the boat, and even races this season will have trackers on the boat, and you'll be able to see the live position of the boat on the website. And Lauren, our technical guru, will get this all integrated through social media. So at any one point, you'll be able to see where we are, what we're doing, and follow along.
Great. Phil, you mentioned that you had met some of the youth who participated in our sailing camp. We're really proud of our sailing camp. We have had one in Newport for several years in a partnership with Sail to Prevail in Newport, wonderful organization. And we've also had a sailing camp in Maine with Sail Maine, and our children love our sailing program. Unfortunately, this year we've had to, like many organizations, make the sad but safe decision to not be able to have in-person camps. Instead, we are having a pretty complete online program, which we know isn't the same, but we're going to take our lemons and make some lemonade. And Phil, when you and I were talking recently, we hadn't thought about a way to take our sailing program online, but then you and I came up with a great idea, I think, and you're kind enough to volunteer your time for the week of July 20th. It may not even be live registration yet. This is such a new development. And you talked about taking the Zoom on your boat and teaching children about sailing. We are going to have some wonderful hands-on activities that you will introduce, and then our team is going to work in breakout rooms with the children to do. I know my son, who's 11, is really excited about knot tying. So I think you're going to show the kids some knots. We'll make sure that our campers have rope at home, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, and the kids will get hands-on instructions on how to make their knots, and we'll come back together and share what we learned. So that's something I'm excited about, again, the week of July 20th. So what are some things that you're looking forward to with our sailing camp on the week of July 20th?
Yeah, so in addition to connecting with the people with epilepsy and sharing our stories, one thing I'm really excited about is we're going to have everyone make a flag. There's a simple flag. We'll talk about why they're important. And the goal is everyone will go away and make a flag. And then what I'm really excited about is if we can get a picture of each of the flags, Sail for Epilepsy is then going to make a Sail for Epilepsy flag that contains each of the flags that were made in the camp. And so then as we are in different ports, we will be flying the flag of the Epilepsy Foundation, the flag, so to speak. That's something that's fun. I'm looking forward to the knot tying. And then the challenge will be, can they tie the knot behind their back?
Oh.
Another thing is a little bit about the stars. Why is the North Star so important? And it's not something most people realize, but then the thing I'm really excited about is on the last day at noon, I'll be starting it'll be about a 24-hour race. And technology permitting, we will have a live feed from the boat in Newport Harbor as the run up to the race. And we'll be able to, we'll literally be sailing the boat and getting things ready for the start line. And if technology permits, we would have got to know one another. We'll be able to see the beginning of the race. Then I'll have to shut off the connection because I have to focus on sailing safely. But we'll have a tracker, and then the tracker will go through the whole race, and then we will be posting comments during the race so that people can follow what's happening in the race. I don't expect everyone to be up at 2 or 3 in the morning, but get up in the morning, and my hope is to be able to post during the night so that in the morning you can get up and see what's happened during the race and ultimately how we position. But for me, the success of all this is actually doing the race, getting to the start line, planning, putting the guardrails in place, doing the race, and the joy of getting through one of the challenges successfully. So it's going to be a fun week. So July 20th, keep looking for the advertisements about it. And I think it's going to be a great collaboration.
Yeah, I think registration is going to be available either later today or tomorrow. We're so excited about that announcement. And Phil, we couldn't obviously do this without you. So thank you for volunteering your time that week. And really for all you're doing with Sail for Epilepsy. It's super impressive. We're lucky to partner with you and look forward to supporting your journey and getting the word out and getting our community excited. I think there's a lot of people who are going to learn a lot about sailing and who knows, might take it up themselves, especially when you demonstrate some of the guardrails that you've put in place to make sailing safe for you. David, have any questions come in for Phil yet?
I don't see any questions that have come in yet, but if any do come in after the fact, we'll make sure to connect them with Phil and with Sail for Epilepsy.
Great. Phil, was there anything else that you wanted to share with our community today?
Yeah, I just come back to a couple of messages I keep repeating, and I repeat these to my kids, is I can and I will, and try to do that extra thing, whatever it is, but with those guardrails. And it can be incredibly rewarding. And probably finally, visit sailforepilepsy.org, go to social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, like us, and look for lots of posts coming soon. And if you are, and importantly, if you have epilepsy, don't give up. It can be a real challenge. I remember some desperate days, and I will never forget them. But just keep pushing forward. Tomorrow's another day. There's always hope.
One more step is right.
You got it.
Well, Phil, again, we're so happy about our partnership. Thank you for all you're doing to raise awareness and bring that message of hope and inspiration to our community. We can't wait to talk with you more. Again, we'll see you the week of July 20th. And by the way, for our camp, you can be any age to participate in sailing camps. If you want to learn more about sailing and rope tying, whether you're 5 or 50, you are welcome to join in our camp program. So with that, Phil, thank you so much. Thanks everybody who had the time to watch us today. Go to sailforepilepsy.org, and we will see you soon. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks so much, Phil.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, David. Bye-bye, everyone.